Welcome to Loot Drops, our show about all things shared world shooters. Joining me today is Arekkz.
What up?
And Dantics, and of course, he's looking great. He's awake.
I'm awake. Dantics, and of course, I thought you were going to say something else. Look at Dantics, and of course, he is handsome. But no.
I almost went there, but I was like, maybe it's not appropriate. No, just kidding. Thank you so much for joining us on this Sunday morning, or whenever you happen to be listening. On today's show, we actually have a pretty cool show today. We're going to talk about Anthem, and we're going to just kind of get a little concept-y and say, what would it take to make an Anthem 2.0 launch a success? We're going to talk about Division 2 Title Update 3. We're going to talk about the Destiny 2 raid news. That'll be a little redundant from me, but I'm going to let these guys talk a little bit more about what the raid launching on day one means. And then Monster Hunter, there was some news, and Arekkz knows all about that. I'm not even going to pretend I know a lot about Monster Hunter World, but we got you guys covered. Arekkz has got you for sure. So let's kick off the show by talking about Anthem and that launch. I had a few ideas. I sent them to you guys in the run of show notes. So I want to hand it to you, Arekkz. Let me know. We'll start with you, and you let me know what you think it would take for Anthem to come out again like No Man's Sky it, relaunch, and have a really, really successful showing out of the gate.
So there's definitely like a ton of different components to it. But I'll speak specifically about like kind of gameplay things that jump to me, because obviously I remember one of the things that you mentioned, kind of story stuff, and obviously I'll let you kind of speak more about that, because I'm invariably in these games, as much as I appreciate story, I'm not really a story guy too tough. So like I'll play through it. Like for me, it's just like it's like I'm mechanics, I'm loot. That's kind of why I play these games, right? And obviously I know BioWare's known for story, but I definitely came to this more as a looter fan than I did a story fan. So for me, I mean, like one of the things is just depth, like 100%. It needs to be, I mean, like looking now, like I mean, for example, having a chance to spend some time with Borderlands at the reveal event, and obviously seeing the depth that you can go down skill trees. Other games, we look to say, like when Destiny, for example, had its first Taken King and they reinvented it, and then obviously you had all these new options, and then obviously how that then changed again in Destiny 2, and they stripped that back, and we lost that depth in like skill trees. I think that's one thing that in these kind of games, because when you want to make builds, for example, when you look at something like Anthem, I had a lot of fun making builds from from the stuff that we had at launch. But obviously, once you've kind of gone past those quote unquote best builds, they kind of become a little bit one dimensional, right? It's a bit like, throw on this item, there's your build kind of thing. So I feel like there's so much they could do with that, because I mean, you are basically Iron Man, right? And you could have there's no end of like customization options you could have. So I think it would be nice if, even if you got to that point where you still had the same, obviously you would want more, but you still have the same like base number of abilities. But if you had like trees of customization between them, and they suddenly all started to change, I mean, that in itself would suddenly start to open up the depth of the game. It would obviously start to, obviously on top of that, you need like a ton more content, and I feel like there's like stuff around that. But I definitely like to see that.
So, Arekkz, for you, it sounds like a drastic revamp of what they have done with the loot system and progression generally in Anthem would do a lot for you as a player to kind of revitalize your interest. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
So, Dantics, I know you probably have some stuff to say about loot. Do you want to jump off that, add anything? What are your thoughts? What would it take for you, or what do you see as a weakness with Anthem that really needs to be strengthened?
So I'm of the same mind as Arekkz. I go into BioWare games absolutely loving the storyline. So completely opposite to Arekkz with that regard, but in regards to what will fix Anthem, I don't think it's more story. I don't think it is a particularly strong aspect of Anthem. I went into it and played the new raid, and the new Stronghold, sorry, and that was a lot of fun. And you know why it was a lot of fun? It was not because it was something new. It was because Anthem fundamentally just does have really fun gameplay. So they need to buckle down upon that. It is fun it's still fun to fly around. It's still fun to shoot things. It's still fun to use the skills. So yeah, if there was a skill tree system for each javelin, that would be amazing. So completely agree with that. But if they want to revitalize the game, they can't go into it half-assed. They do have to, take a bit of time and add a lot of content, like you were saying, Destin. And I think that means a lot more strongholds. I think that means a lot more end-game content. I think that means a drastic overhaul of the loot system. And I've been a perpetrator of this point since the show started. It needs better loot. It fundamentally falls flat on its face. And I'll talk about that in a little bit with the latest patch notes that I want to go through. But I feel like the way they keep people playing and the way they keep most people playing in looter shooters is make the loot interesting, make the exotics or the legendaries or whatever you want to call the end game items, the rainbows for Borderlands 3, add some skills that function in a way that make you want to build a character around it and be unique and different to your friends. So if that's a unique text that does something quite different and changes your character in a huge way or makes them look different or changes how their skills function, then 100% you should do that. Looking at Borderlands 3, the massive skill tree system that they had, like Arekkz was talking about, that just makes me excited to play. It makes me excited to try out new builds and, you know, make new videos on different builds and talk to my friends about what they're doing and working together with these new builds. Like, let's say we all go fire damage and each class can go fire damage down a fire skill tree, for example. Then you have this synergy working and there's just this more stuff to talk about, more stuff to do. And I think that's what Anthem really needs. So Destin, you've got a lot of stuff to talk about here, so what do you think?
Yeah, so I wanted to give you guys a chance to talk. I have a lot of ideas on this one. First of all, the base story of Anthem, I think it's okay. There are moments where it really shines and it actually has like an impact on you when your character actually appears in the cutscenes, for example, or your game doesn't crash and you get kicked out of the cutscenes. So just on that note, like stability is still an issue with the game. So fewer crashes. I don't know what they did with the latest update, but whatever you did, it's bad because like it's not really stable right now. Secondarily, I disagree on the story front. I know that a lot of people don't come for story, but I think to get people interested, you would need to launch with a compelling narrative, really well crafted, that really gets people invested in the world of Anthem again. Do either of you guys play Final Fantasy 14?
I did for a bit, and then it wasn't really my jam, so I.
You did.
Yeah, it wasn't really my jam.
Okay, so Final Fantasy 14, I'll just set it up for you. A Realm Reborn has an okay story, right? Then there's this interim where it's kind of like a lot of fetch quests. You're like moving bases or whatever. And then I'm not here yet, but here's what happens at the end. The last two expansions have had a ridiculously phenomenal story to the point where it's all I constantly hear about and how good it is. And if you'll remember, Final Fantasy 14 actually launched. The game was out, and it was bad. Like, it was really bad.
I played on day one.
I played on day one, and they took it offline, and then they relaunched it as A Realm Reborn. And A Realm Reborn redid everything. It redid a lot of the systems, and people are like, oh my God, this is such a drastic improvement. So even Final Fantasy 14, this huge mega franchise, has a realization that they weren't delivering what they needed to be to the audience. They fixed it, they relaunched, and now it's regarded as one of the best MMOs that you can possibly play. That's what I think Anthem needs to do. I think they need to not necessarily go offline, but when they relaunch, it needs to be with a bang. Because if it's just some minor stuff like, oh, now you can see your stats in the inventory. Okay, but your core story is still kind of a little bit of a mess and all over the place. Or, hey, our gun system is still the same. Yes, we turned up the loot the way that everybody has wanted basically since launch. But you still have the problem of green, blue. We have a closet that periodically just pops open and scares the hell out of us. And it just did it again. So anyway, the loot system, it's green, blue, purple, and then masterwork and legendaries, right? And the problem is everything's basically the same. Even if you have legendaries, if you're not building into that, then they're really not that impactful. You don't really have a lot of stuff that can just tear through shields, or weapons have cool visual effects, but they don't have that oomph that they need to have. And I think they really need to go back to the drawing board, really think about what they did with Anthem at launch, the stuff that worked. You're right, Dantics. You absolutely nailed it. There is something there with the gameplay. I think it's the guns that are really lacking, and James Duggan pointed it out since preview that was a problem. And I think you guys probably did too. Like the guns, the guns were largely overwhelming, with the exception of like muster pointing and then nuking somebody with a sniper. I think that's one of the strongest points. Making builds that break the game. Like what was that?
Exactly right.
Avenging Herald, right? Where you're hitting for 15,000 crits.
Raptor.
Yeah, stuff like that. Oh yeah, Raptor sense and all that. That stuff.
Yeah,
is
that's
really
just a buff. Yeah, it's super fun, and I completely agree. You need to take a step back, BioWare, and launch with a lot of content. I think me and Destin and Arekkz all kind of agree on that point.
I think there needs to be like pursuits as well. Like when you think about like the more stuff because everything there comes to this interesting balance where like a lot of developers have kind of juggled with this. Where like in these kind of games, you try to strike the balance where you can get everything from everywhere. And then sometimes people are scared to say, oh, you have to do this activity to get certain things, because then there's the kind of backlash sometimes from the audience who don't necessarily have all the same time. So they're like, well, I don't want to have to. I mean, it doesn't apply to Anthem, but some for example, back in like Division 1, they'd be like, I don't want to have to do the raid to get this gear. I don't have the time, or I don't have friends to put together a team. I completely understand that, but I think people need to understand as well that in some games, just because you have the base game doesn't mean you're gonna get everything, right? It's like when you play World of Warcraft. Like I was never good enough at the arena. I never got the arena gear. I didn't kind of go and kick up a fuss. I'm just like, I guess that's just not for me, right? But I feel like in games where a lot of the time where you can get everything from everywhere, it just dilutes everything. I feel like there needs to be pursuits. There needs to be reasons to go and do certain stuff. And in a game like this, where you have limited loot pool and you have like, hey, you can literally just do any activity and you might get your weapon. Like, I'm just like, well, then where am I dedicating my time? Like, is there any reason to go and do this new Stronghold? No, there's no reason. Is there any reason to go and do this mission over Stronghold? No, there's no reason, right? I feel like it is still important. Like, there's a balance to be had, but I think it's definitely important to have pursuits that you can follow.
There needs to be investment for hardcore players. There needs to be an investment for them, 100%. Because if you're a player that plays casually 5 hours, maybe a week, you shouldn't get the same rewards as someone who plays hardcore 10 hours a day, right? Like, there just shouldn't be that.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot I could actually think about this, but you can call this a character flaw of myself. But I love when the underdog comes back from behind and like succeeds. I love the No Man's Sky story. I love the Final Fantasy story in the gaming universe, and I would love it if Anthem, admittedly, it let a lot of people down, and a lot of people blame me personally for that. And I'm like, look, I liked some of the core concepts here, but now realizing that it let so many people down, I would love to see it come back and just wow people. Of course, I think that's what we all want as gamers, right? Like, we just don't want to get screwed over, first of all, and a lot of people felt that way about Anthem, and so that's primarily the thing. But if they came back and they had a really, really excellent content launch, I think they could win people back, but they have to prove themselves. They have to like go against all this negativity, which they have been online, and they're holding some stuff close to the chest. They haven't been talking about it, but I think they got something planned, and I hope when they're ready to talk again, it's really worth them waiting and what they've been building towards.
Yeah, I hope the skeleton's there, and now it's just a case of pumping out content, getting the right writers, recording the right content, modeling the right things. And I hope they don't drip feed us that content so it feels like it's less than it is. I feel like they need to hold it back, be patient, and give us that loot diversity like you're talking about, Destin. Give us the better guns like you're talking about, Destin. Like you were talking about, Arekkz. Maybe give us a skill tree or add more depth to that side of things. And Destin, I don't 100% care too much about the story, but if there was something that really caught our attention, like there is in the Old Republic MMO, for example, how they always bring out some awesome cinematics and some awesome storylines. And Anthem, why not cinematics? Let's do it instead of just basic story.
So one of the other topics, guys, that we wanted to talk about, Dantics, you wanted to kind of talk about the Stronghold. We all got to play it now. And the patch notes. So starting with the Stronghold, I'll just say this. It's a Stronghold. You go through and you do it, and I wasn't too blown away by anything, except the ending. I will give them credit for the art design team and the way that level's designed. I think it's really cool how the water is sort of inverted coming out of the ground. I really, really enjoyed that aspect of it. And for me, it was kind of like, I'm like, okay, this is a really cool visual setting. It still has the Like I actually melted that boss pretty quickly with some randos.
Yeah.
that was pretty Grandmaster 1, to be fair. Yeah, but did you guys have any impressions of the Stronghold now that we all played it? Dantics?
Yeah, look, I didn't like the puzzle sections.
I don't know what I was doing. I just stood on the platform. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
So I didn't get the
order.
first bit.
Yeah.
Like the second one I did, because I did all the second ones, and I normally like I like the puzzle stuff. Like in any games, I just like those kind of. I guess it makes me kind of think of like Zelda stuff. But the first one, I'll admit, because I jumped in and like I was kind of fighting enemies, and then people were just standing on things, and then the door just opened. I was like,
Right.
I like that they doubled down on the water part of like the theme, because we all know what they've gone through with water controls and people complaining about that. So it's like, you know what? Let's make a level around swimming through a pipe.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it's pretty ballsy. Other than that, what did you think of the boss fight?
Yeah, I mean, that for me, that was my favorite part, just visually. But the fact that the boss is a scaled up version of an enemy that we fought, I actually didn't mind that as much as most people did. I don't know. It was just like, all right, it's a bigger version of the boss. It would have been cool to have a new, unique boss, but I was okay with it. We hadn't fought this boss type as a final boss before, so whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting something crazy, like a big crab or something.
especially given
was
the
hoping.
setting, right? Like
Giving
the water,
the setting,
it could have come out of the water. It could have been like a leviathan, like whoosh, whoosh.
Yeah.
It's like nope.
It could be like Monster Hunter style, you know, like this big reveal that comes out of the water and then it goes, and then it's like Leviathan.
Whenever you say big crab, I'm just like, I imagine South Park crab people walk like crab, talk.
Crab,
and like he just shows up.
crab,
Hello.
Crab.
I
wish.
You will not defeat me, Anthem.
Sorry. Sony press conference back in, what was it, 2006 or 8, when it's like flip over the crab for massive damage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez. So the only other topic we wanted to hit on for Anthem was patch notes. So Dantics,
patch notes. Let's sum it up. So some basic localization issues were fixed. There was some visual statistic bugs that were fixed. There was an exploit that could allow more loot than intended that was fixed, so they nerfed loot again. Like, is this really something you want to fix? And they removed the Elysian caches. And the let me just get a quote here. They've always been planned as a temporary thing since there was a timer under the challenges. There's a chance they'll come back again sometime.
When your game is in the state it's in and you're taking content out of it, it's like, what are you doing? Just leave them in there, dude. Yeah.
I just don't know what to say. This just feels like such a wasted effort. Like someone there would have had to press a button to remove them when people are only there for the minor amount of content that's left, and they're going to take that away from them as well. I feel like it's a mistake. What do you guys think?
I mean, I guess the only thing that could, I mean, like, yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I mean, it's not like, I mean, especially given the chest never included armor in the first place, their appeal was hugely lessened anyway. So my only thinking can be, and I sincerely hope it is this, it's one of those ones where they're taken out because they're also revamping the way that they work. So then they're hoping that when they finally do reintroduce them, not that it makes it, because again, I completely agree with you. In this situation where there's not great deal to stuff to do, then you might as well at least let them get some more caches. But maybe they are planning for this, this bigger thing. Maybe they're like, oh, let's take the caches out. Let's rework how they work. Maybe let's actually put some armor in them. And then finally, when they do put them back in, people are like, whoa, they're actually cool now. So all I'm going to say is I hope that when they do come back, they better be cool. And they better have gear in. And if they just come back with more vinyls, oof.
Right.
So does IGN have like a way to test out new features on a site offline while the site is still running? Yeah. I know. I already know the answer to this.
Does. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like Anthem could do the same. Just leave this thing up, and just work on the shit in the background, and then when it's ready, just introduce it. You know. I don't know. I just really hope that they actually just increase the loot amount, because right now people just want loot to be easier, and the few people that are left, does it really matter if they get it? does it really matter at this point? So just let them have it, up the loot, de-nerf it, put it to the stage it was. Do you remember that perfect timing window where loot was really, really easy to get, and then they nerfed that a week later? That put it back to that stage, I think, and then leave it, and then come back 6 months, a year and a half later, with this massive overhaul, and I think that's what the game needs, make people happy. So that's all we got for patch notes.
Yeah, for sure. One of the other topics was raids. So we were going to be talking about raids this week. Destiny has a raid coming up, and Division has a raid coming up. Well, I mean, at least that's what people are thinking. They said Title Update 3 is on the way. Arekkz, why don't you take people through some of the notes? And just as a note, I have to step away for just a second. I will be back in like 2 seconds. So Arekkz and Dantics, it's your show for a little bit. I'll be right back.
Yeah,
sure. So so on the cool, definitely. But yeah, on the Division front, so there's not. I mean, so Title Update 3 goes live this week, but this is basically the Title Update that has for a little while been tested in PTS. So it's not as new as people may kind of think, unless of course you're on console, in which case you don't get to experience it. So a lot of the stuff they have been testing out, and of course the things that people liked have been pushed forward, the things that didn't necessarily work. A few things worth calling out. So gear score isn't going to be increased with this new title update because they don't want people to, well, they basically want people to be able to hit that cap so that they can get ready for the raid. So the idea is that, you're not going to have like a higher tier to pursue now. You're just going to be at that position. They've changed some of the loot stuff so that it now drops, because some of the gear was dropping below your gear score. So now at least if you are 500, you can actively start farming 500 pieces, which is cool. There's obviously like a lot of like bug fixes and changes and balancing things to specific perks and whatnot. But I think the underlying thing is that like a lot of the stuff that's been tested in the PTS has then gone is going live in this thing now. But the thing with the big question for the raid, obviously, is that it's not live just yet, but they said that it will follow soon after. Now they haven't given us a date yet. I'm assuming Title Update 3 will go live either on Tuesday or on Thursday, because that's typically when updates drop for Division. I'm sincerely hoping, and I don't think they would do this, I'm sincerely hoping they will still give us a date for it, and they're not going to do one of those things like, surprise, it's live, guys.
Yes,
I
you
don't
can
think they will,
jump in.
Exactly right, yeah. I mean, I don't think they will, because they have spoken about how they really want to make sure that people can kind of like, get involved in this day one race. They've spoken about how they think it might be quite challenging. I think there's a lot of like, there's definitely a lot of eyeballs on this, because they've never done a raid before, but in Division 1, a lot of people, even though they were never raids, people kind of saw incursions as like raid-like activities, and they were definitely not what people wanted. So there's definitely a lot of questions about, how is it actually going to pan out? Is it going to be interesting? Is it going to be challenging? Because the bar's been set quite recently for, although they're not the people, they didn't, invent raids. Like Destiny, Bungie have been great at doing raids for Destiny, and it's almost become, even though you've got things like games like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14 that have raids, like for the sort of looter shooter genre, it's almost like Destiny's become like the benchmark.
Exactly. So what can people expect with the Division 2 raid? What for someone who hasn't followed Division 2 that closely? Sure. How would you sell me on this raid up and coming? Like, what do you know about it?
So we don't know much about it at all at the moment. What we do know is that it's an 8-player activity, which is rather exciting, given that most of the stuff in Division is all 4-player, and even Destiny's only a 6-player activity. So if any of there was at one point there was some stuff that was potentially data mined, which could have hinted at some of the stuff that's you do in the raid, but then there was a kind of a follow-up post where someone said that data mine stuff wasn't accurate. So it's kind of hard to say, but there appear to be kind of different like sections to it, as you'd expect. There's sort of like a defending section where you've basically got to protect like a human unit or something like that while trying to sort of get some codes for some kind of room, whatever it is. There's supposed to be like there's a phase where there's supposed to be like, there's actually like supposedly an achievement that is trying to get across a bridge in like a limited amount of time, which makes it sound like it's going to be one of those things where they're going to throw a ton of stuff at you and you just have to kind of try and literally blitz through it. So those in raids, exactly right. And those kind of activities in raids are often the ones where it's like just it's down to kind of, if your build is good and your team is organized, you can kind of blitz through them. It's set on like an airfield. So the interesting thing, here's what I really want to see in Division, and this is one of the things that will like really either sell people or kind of annoy people, is that obviously in Division 1, one of the big things was that a lot of enemies were quite bullet spongy, and if you play something like Destiny, you don't mind firing like 50 million bullets into an alien because it makes sense, right? But if you fire 50 million bullets into a human who's wearing a hoodie, it doesn't make sense.
That was one of my gripes with Division 1.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So the question is going to be, what are they going to do for the boss in this? You know, if you look to like Division 1 for the closest things we've had before, you would have like incursions. We've fought, tanks as bosses. We've like missions. Yeah, we fought helicopters and things like that. So, that kind of, and that's the one thing that I really want to see how they can challenge that, because in a game like Division, where, and especially a Tom Clancy game, they do to a certain degree, they are grounded in reality, or there's obviously like some kind of room for crazy things, but largely speaking, you're not going to have anything, you're not going to have any like superhuman alien enemies. So I want to see how they try and spin that on the boss, because I feel like there's a lot of things you can still do. And make it exciting, and make it, you could even be like a person like a mech suit. At least that would make more sense. But if they try and just do like a sniper boss who's just got a ton of health, I don't know. But who knows? Yeah, I mean they've done a lot of great things. They've shown a lot of things. And Division 2 is kind of like surprised a lot of people. So
I mean, difficulty can come from the sheer amount of enemies, right? There could just simply be enemies coming from every single direction, and you don't have much cover, and you've just got to coordinate with your team very well to get through those quickly and not be overwhelmed, right?
I do just hope, though, if they do that, because to a degree we had that with like an incursion in Division 1, and I think that's one of the things where I guess maybe it's this sort of an expectancy that's kind of come from raid-like activities, where like in Division, in Destiny, for example, like I like it when raids have mechanics. I like it where if you go into an activity and you fail not because, I lost because there were 50 enemies and I just couldn't kill them at once. Yeah, but I prefer when it's like, oh wait, our team just died. Like, why did we die? And then you're like, shoot that. It ticks off a timer, and if you don't cleanse yourself in this time, your whole team wipes. Things like that are really cool to solve.
Yeah. I want the molten core mechanics. Like I always reference molten core when I think of raids. It's like you gotta have one guy that's just turned into a bomb and he's gonna run away from the group, otherwise you all wipe. Like that is just amazing. Like that when that first happened, I was like, that is cool. That is cool. We're gonna have to work together now. Let's get on vent.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, you could take that kind of concept and you could technically still apply it to something like Division. Because, for example, there are human enemies that run at you with bombs. And they just literally run. They're like suicide bombers. They run towards you, right? They could have like a mechanic where, I don't know, maybe one of these guys runs towards you and literally slaps a bomb on you, and then runs away like a crazy guy. And you're like, oh wait, I've got and then you have to run away. Like maybe it's something like that, So there's definitely things that I feel like that, and even when it comes down to like, you're looking like World of Warcraft, when there's like areas on the ground that need to be, you have to like move away from them. You can still do that in Division. It could be like, there's a tank, or I don't know, there's like a tanker that gets exploded and then just like fire leaks everywhere and you're like, oh, suddenly we have to shift. So you can still, I feel like you could definitely still emulate those kind of more abstract mechanics you would get in the kind of fantasy raids, but still apply it to a realistic setting. So I just definitely, that's the thing. I think my main hope is that above all else, that they find a way to like interestingly introduce mechanics that aren't just, we're going to throw enemies at you, because we've seen that in the past before, and that was definitely
I think
the least thing.
I mean, there could be stuff like drones that fire overhead, and while they're overhead you have to get to a different section of cover, and maybe you need to manage your team that way, and then that switches to like dogs, for example, that charge at you. Then you have to run to a different section altogether and coordinate. So there could be things like that. But Arekkz, I think Destin's going to be a little longer. So there was some Monster Hunter news that I believe you can talk about. Not news, but there's a... I just love snowy themes. So why don't you take it away and tell me all about it?
Sure. So like most times it's funny because like someone said on Twitter, I think like a few episodes back, they were like, "Hey, are you ever going to talk about Monster Hunter?" I was like, it's kind of it semi fits here because it's like there's loot in the game. It's not when you kill things, you carve them and you get parts from them, but it's not like a conventional, all your stuff afterwards is crafted. So it's kind of slightly abstract. But
there is shooting. There is shooting.
Hey, there you go, right? But give me an opportunity to play Monster Hunter, and I'll be there anyway. But yeah, so basically, Iceborne is the follow-up expansion to Monster Hunter World, right? And Iceborne is effectively going to be like the G rank expansion. They're not calling it G rank this time; they're calling it Master rank. But basically, it's the same thing. G rank is always for Monster Hunter been the upper tier. You have low, high, and G. So with it means you have, there's a new map, there's gonna be a ton of new monsters, there'll be new moves for your weapons, there'll be new things to do, new things to collect, new gear to make. Basically, they have said on Twitter, if you, some of the social media managers quoted it because, rather interestingly, I always find it funny when someone watches like a trailer and they completely misconstrue it. So for some reason, people saw that presentation and they thought, the expansion only has 3 monsters because they only show 3 monsters. It's like, no, they've only just shown 3 monsters just to begin with.
That's ridiculous.
Hey, I know, right? But hey, apparently someone needed to clarify that. So
all that means is that's a minimum of 3, right? Like
exactly, right? Exactly. There were legitimately some articles saying Iceborne has 3 monsters. Like, please, but yeah. But that aside, they did quote it and they said that apparently Iceborne will rival the content in the base game. So obviously, the base game had, I think it was 30 monsters. Those things like that. So you're. I mean that is huge. And if you look at the previous Monster Hunter games as examples, I mean that's kind of nothing new, right? I mean, like G rank expansions have always been like the base game on top, and they just give you a ton of new content. So I mean it's set in this new icy map, so that looks incredible. It's supposed to be the biggest region they've done to date, and it's unlike all the other ones. This one supposedly reveals itself as you progress through the campaign, so you won't just have like all the other ones. You kind of get there and the whole map's already accessible, but this one apparently you progress through. And the new moves is really exciting because this is one of those things where some Monster Hunter games in the past, obviously like when we had for Ultimate, they introduced the Insect Glaive and the Charge Blade, and what was it? I think it was Try introduced the Switch Axe. So occasionally we've had new weapons, and there's always that question of like, are you ever going to get a new weapon? And I feel like you would never get it mid kind of like expansion. But the fact that adding new moves for stuff means that, effectively the core fundamental way that we have learned up until now to use the weapons could potentially change in the expansion. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to be in there.
How do you fundamentally add more moves to something, say the hammer, where it's just hit them on the head, spin around, hit them on the head again?
Who knows? Because right now all they've shown is the great sword, the light bowgun, and the dual blades. I think the way they're going to do it for like other weapons is because one of the things they're introducing is in Monster Hunter World they added in the slinger, so obviously you can fire things from your arm. But they've now introduced this mechanic called the clutch claw, where you can actually fire a claw and you can grapple onto monsters. And then from when we saw like in the trailer, the longsword user can then grapple onto the monster and does a new move from there. So I guess maybe some of those new moves will come from grapples and other things like that. So
you could also look
at
Destiny.
Zelda.
You could also look at Destiny and what the Titan has done with hammers. You can throw hammers. You can have a hammer and a little hammer that you have to pick up again,
True.
And then you have the spinny hammer that slams. So there are definitely things you can do with hammers. And like the Monster Hunter team has done such a amazing job of building those movesets over the years for several different weapon types. I have full confidence that they could come up with something cool, even for a spinny 100%. Hammer hitty.
Yeah, big hammer boy.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
It's got to be hammer, right? Like, I can't play Monster Hunter without playing the hammer. Like, I keep going back to it. I'm like, the Insect Glaive's cool. You get to spin around in the air and stuff. Nah, hit him on the head. Nah.
So hammer is awesome.
So this is content, the Monster Hunter content. This is for players that have gone through the main campaign and such, right? So this is endgame content. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So you have to have completed the base game, and then you have to have owned the base game. So although you have to still purchase it, it is still like it is a continuation. So I'll have a new story, I'll have everything like that. But yeah, it is the hardest of the hard stuff.
I apologize for stepping away for just a second. Is there anything else we need to know about Monster Hunter?
At the moment, no. They just said, I think they said they'll have more to show soon. So I guess E3 is the next day on the horizon. So for the time being, that's kind of it.
Dope trailer, huge expansion coming to Monster Hunter. Let's take it back to Division 2 real quick. So Division 2 gives us an excuse to talk about Ghost Recon, which is also going to have raids. Is that correct?
Yes.
It is. So it's interesting that 2 Ubisoft titles are going to have raids. And I believe one of the images that they teased in Ghost Recon was a tank that they would fight, right?
I believe so, but I didn't put 2 and 2 together, honestly. Let me just be honest. I didn't put together that you'd be fighting that. So I can't comment.
I just want to say that I think there's a lot of things that Division could still wow us with a raid when they launch it, and I would love to see what real world things that they could develop that would be implemented in this world. Like we already fought the robot dogs, so that's sort of like an evolution of the enemy combatant types that we can fight, and like we basically fight hackers or engineers in that game. And I think if you start putting those those player or enemy types together in interesting manners with a few puzzle elements, like they did. One of the strongholds has you take out the guns, right, and then you DPS the boss with the cloak, basically.
Yeah.
Right. So I think if they lean more into that, or drones, for example, we fought drones before. Like, what if you have to take out 2 big drones and then DPS a tank or something like that?
Yeah.
I think there's definitely places that they could go with it. I like that it's 8-player, and I do like that they're adding raids to more games, like Ghost Recon.
Ghost Recon.
Yeah. Boast.
Yeah.
You can boast Recon once you beat the raid.
Boost Recon.
Bad joke. I'm sorry.
Hey, brilliant.
But yeah, besides the raid stuff, was there anything? Oh, one big note is that there's no gear score increase. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I don't really mind. I mean, like to a degree, I can appreciate, when you have like new title updates. Sometimes they're I don't see this one as like a new update. I saw this more as sort of like an interim update. So I didn't personally expect a gear score increase with this one. Because I feel like we're still in the kind of in that middle phase where we've had like some of the new content added. We haven't necessarily got the raid, so we're still in that kind of transition period. And I feel like, given that they have said that the raid is coming, soon after, and there was one of the fixes that did go live in this is that when you are gear score, the gear will actually drop at your gear score now, which is kind of annoying because obviously I got to gear score 500 and sometimes I was still farming things and they're dropping like 480, 490. So obviously that's annoying. So to be fair, I think it makes sense because you can now be 500 and now you can farm your build. So.
Question on that. So like I'm 506. Does that mean stuff's going to drop at 506 even currently, or does this title update go live on Tuesday? And at that point, stuff will drop at 506 or at the soft cap of 500?
I believe it will drop at the soft cap of 500, I think, because I think anything like above that is kind of typically as a result of like recalibration and stuff. So I think, I mean, but it won't be at the moment. It'll be post update and stuff, which I think is either Tuesday or Thursday. I don't think they've locked it in yet. But yeah, honestly, I didn't really miss a gear score upgrade for this one. I feel like if they increased it and then they've said, hey, by the way, the raid's coming very soon after, there'll be this weird scramble. So I think I almost expect one where like whatever they do after the raid, like what their next update is, when there'll probably be like new story missions and like maybe a new world tier, because that's the interesting thing as well. I mean, we're already in world tier 5, so if they're going to increase the gear score, are they going to add like world tier 6, or are they just going to bring up the baseline? Yeah.
I wish they would have increased the gear score, to be honest. I think this is fine. Like, it'll be a good technical challenge for raid teams to go in and actually fight within the raid. But once it's completed and once you've done it once with your team, what is the incentivization to continue playing? We've already had the raid delayed. So like I'm at gear score 506. I don't have a lot of incentivization to go. I could be chasing exotics. Yes, I'm aware. But I don't really feel that incentivized. I'm like, well, what's the raid going to have? So now we know the raid's coming. There will probably be gear in there. Maybe there will be some really dope gear sets. But these power fantasy games are all about gearing up to take on a new challenge. Or if the raid had raised the gear score level, then you would be doing the raid to be able to do the raid better, right?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, one chatter, Badger said, the incentive is raid gear sets. Yes, of course. Yes, you're going to have cool raid gear sets, but your light will be the same. So that isn't necessarily going to help you with the pinnacle content of the game. So, yeah, I think Division has some interesting stuff going for it. But I'll be interested to see what it's like after the raid launches and people get to sort of devour it. Yeah. And, of course, then we'll be at E3, basically, right? So yeah.
I mean, unless they're planning to like do. Go on.
Gearing up to face new challenges could also mean gearing up to face a new game. So they just need to be careful to keep people's interest. You know what I mean? Like it's there's so many games out there right now. Even us just talking about looter shooters. That if you start, this applies to Anthem and all the looter shooters. But if you start almost looking down upon your audience, like they don't deserve a bit of a challenge, they don't deserve a certain amount, then you're going to reach a situation where they just move on to another game. And with E3 coming up, people are going to get hyped for new things, I'm fairly certain. So this is an opportunity for them to really, for Division, for Destiny, for Anthem, to really introduce something that incentivizes people to play for longer. So
I don't think any of the well, I don't know, but I don't think they're looking down on their audience at all. I think, of course, they're being supportive, but I think a better word would be underestimating how hungry your audience is.
Yeah. That's much better. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, when you have a really rabid audience, like Arekkz, you play the crap out of Division, right? Are you still playing pretty regular? Or have you
well, at the moment, because the moment I'm basically raid ready, so I'm kind of just sort of like chilling at the moment. So the past few weeks have been sort of a little bit slower, but I mean, yeah, we've got where we need to be.
Yeah. I have like a competent build. It's not like God tier or anything, but I kind of, once I hit max light or max level or whatever in these games, I'm kind of like, all right, I'm good, because I've learned what they do is they just move the bar. And then I'm like, okay, now I have something to climb, so I'll climb the ladder a little bit more. All right, I'm at the top of the ladder. Time to play Destiny. And I said Destiny right there because it gives me an easy transition point to talk about what's happening raid-wise in Destiny. And we talked about this on Fireteam Chat, so be sure you check out youtube.com/Fireteam Chat if you're not there already. And our conversation about the raid. Basically, they're changing their raid drop strategy so that the Crown of Sorrow raid is going to drop at June 4th at 4 p.m. Pacific time. The Season of Opulence drops that morning at, would it be 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.? I don't know what reset is with the time change, Arekkz.
Probably 10, 11. Yeah, I think it would be like 10 because then it'll be like 6 p.m. for us, I think.
Yeah, so it's basically 6 hours after the content drops. And I love this. I'm really, really enjoying. Even right now, I've been playing Destiny this morning to get ready, where I'm kind of figuring out the gear that I want to bring in. I'm making sure that my alts are leveled appropriately. I'm doing all the pre-planning, like making sure that I have all the forges unlocked on all characters so that I can get some easy weapon drops, et cetera, et cetera. But I brought you guys up on Fireteam Chat because I'm like, all right, 4 p.m. Pacific time, my time. What is that for somebody like Arekkz and Dantics? And what does that do? Because the race problem with racing to the finish line has always been that, oh, it's not an even playing field. I'm like, yes, this finally makes it an even playing field. Everybody can prepare. There's not really a way to game the system. You just play the game, you prep appropriately, and then you go into the race. Some people feel I'm gaming the system. I think they're wrong. We're not going to agree on this. I'm playing the game, whatever. If you don't want to do if you were going to, sorry, a little rant for a second.
Say it.
If you were going to run a marathon and you knew it was coming in a month and you didn't train at all, and then you got your butt kicked at the marathon, that is on you. That's your fault.
Yeah.
Like,
that's life, man. That's what boxers do. They train every day before they fight. Like,
when I ran a half marathon and I didn't train that well, and I did it, but it kicked my butt. You have to train, you have to do the prep work to be successful. And people are like, oh, streamers have it. I'm like, well, I don't know what to say at this point because it's launching the same day. You can do the same prep as everybody else, and if you don't want to do that, that's fine, but like, don't like, I don't know what to tell you.
Do the unemployed have it even better than you then?
The unemployed?
The unemployed, like the ones without a job, have it easier than you because they can just play more than you can.
Yeah.
They don't have a wife. They don't have a job. They don't have all of that stuff.
They're not getting married. All that stuff.
Yeah.
They could. Just request the day off. Basically, that's all I'm doing. I'm just. Well, I'll do it for IGN, but if they were like, no, I would just request June 4th off. So anyway, the time thing. Rant over. I apologize, everybody. The time thing, Arekkz, what time is 4 p.m. Pacific time for you?
Midnight.
Great. So are you going to be raid racing that day?
No.
So
no.
what sort of?
It's one of those weird debates because it's the thing is, like, I appreciate, right, that no matter what time you pick, someone in some time zone will always suffer, right? Even before, when it was like, oh yeah, raid's going live at 6 p.m. for me, that's great. It's like, yeah, sure, but then someone in, I don't know, East. Something like time zones are not my strong suit. Basically, but yeah. So there will always be someone where it doesn't work for them. So I can appreciate people be like, well, boo-hoo, like, so what? You got your stuff to. Yeah, I completely get that. But like for me, hey, I'm just one of those guys. I failed to function past midnight, right? So like whenever it used to be Destiny beforehand, it would always be like, okay, cool. The expansion would go live at 6 p.m. You play for like a week. And then the raid would go live on a set day, invariably at 6 p.m., which is it's decent enough. I do remember there was a time, I think it was back in VOG, it went live at like 10 a.m. my time. Hey, that was the best time in the world for me because I had the whole day. But But yeah, like since it's been like 6 p.m., it used to be like this sort of thing where we get into a raid and then invariably we get really far into it, but then as we start to slow down, as it starts to kind of like we start to hit walls, it gets closer and closer to like midnight. We start pushing into like 2, 3 a.m. and then our team has to be like, you know what, we just need to call it, right? Whereas the fact that it now starts at midnight, I mean, yo. But here's the thing, like, I'm not against it because I love the idea of what they're doing because yeah, I do feel like take the Last Wish, right? So Last Wish, our team, we were going to go kind of like participate in the World First race. We grinded the entire week. We played non-stop, but we hadn't done as much pre-prep as everyone else. So everyone else that has stacked all their bounties, stacked everything they possibly could, we didn't have that as much because obviously, we juggle different games. So we played Destiny a lot back then, but not as much as, say, people that only play Destiny, right? So no matter how hard that we, despite the fact we grinded like 12, 16 hours a day for like straight until Last Wish came out, we still got to a point where I think, what was it, third encounter, we just because we got really bad drops and we just hit a wall. We just couldn't go anywhere. We're like, you know what, we've lost out. And then everyone else that had kind of powered through, they just managed to push through. But then we came back like a week later and blitzed the raid. So I like that everyone is going to be on the even playing field. It's like you literally have 6 hours. But I just feel like the time, at least for me, just puts me out of the race. I'm just like, I'm not even going to try and race at midnight. Like, whatever.
You're not going to sleep a little bit before it and give it a try, wake up at midnight?
I'll mess with my training, man. No.
You can't do that.
What time zone you in, Arekkz? You're UK, right?
Yeah, GMT or BST right now.
Yeah, so that sucks. That's a huge market. And that's the only thing I don't like about it. The fact that it launches at midnight does make it really weird for people competing in the UK time zones. And that is that's a large market for the Destiny community.
Yeah, because for anyone like Europe will be 1 a.m., right? So
yeah, so that's the only thing I'm fairly sympathetic to, because that's going to be sort of weird, and it's like basically a race for USA World First.
Exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, because like let's say it starts at midnight, maybe it's shorter though. Maybe it's shorter and most like 2 a.m. fine, but if it's more than that, then it's just kind of like I don't know, guys. I don't know about this. Yeah.
Do things like this ever start at midnight for USA? For anywhere in the USA, actually.
Game launches will often happen at midnight in the US, and they happen at better times for everywhere else in the world, basically. So, yeah. What do you guys think about it? So besides the time zone thing, which I am sympathetic to and I understand, what do you think of the idea of launching a new piece of content and having the raid launch the same day? Do you think that's a good strategy or bad? And can you think of any other examples where any company has done that? Dantics, what about you?
I just think releasing content appropriate times is always going to be good.
Well, the question is this an appropriate time, or is there a better strategy for raid content, like pinnacle content like raids? Because Division waited too long, in my opinion. Destiny is launching the same day as a new piece of content. So
yeah,
good middle ground. What do you think?
Look, I'm so indifferent to this because I feel like I'm not the right person to ask in this case, because for me, raid content in itself, I'm not a massive fan of to start with. Like, I love raid start when it comes to World of Warcraft, for example, with new mechanics, but with looter shooters, with this kind of genre, I never seem to have enough time to really enjoy raids. So for me, I think I might take a back seat to this one. I think it's always going to be good to have the content earlier rather than later, because we'll have a situation like Anthem where it just doesn't come soon enough and people just lose interest. And you need this content for the hardcore. You need them to come together and have something to rally towards. So the earlier the better. So I'm sitting kind of on that side of the fence. So what do you think, Arekkz?
I mean, I can't think of an example. I think Datos the other day. I think the only other one we had was Crota, which kind of dropped the same sort of time. But I mean, I can't think of an example of like another game where it's dropped the same kind of thing. And I feel like I do like the idea of having a bit of time to prep for a raid, right? Because I feel like it also depends. Like I'll admit I'm a little bit out of the loop on Destiny, so I'm not entirely sure what else comes with this update. But by dropping at the same time, it does. I mean, nobody's forcing you to play a raid. Like nobody's saying you must do this. But for anyone, it does. It does kind of like mean you have to blitz through absolutely everything, and you're literally, rushing anything that you could have potentially like enjoyed at a slightly slower pace. But I feel like the only one problem with the raid dropping same day, and we've had this time and time again on previous raid preps, is if you get screwed by loot, which invariably does. I remember one of our guys that was leveling up for Last Wish. I think he got about 5 or 6 drops back to back, all in the same slot. They were all like helmets, and he's like, "Well, now my gear score is terrible because I haven't had like an appropriate." Whereas one of our other guys was like, "Hey, every single drop was in the slot that I needed." It's like, okay, so I feel like there's if you're in this position in this one where like you get screwed completely with loot drops, then you're going to go and you're like, well, I might as well not even take part in the race because I'm just going to be like plummeting.
Yeah, I was about to say, get screwed completely by loot drops.
There we go, right? But yeah, that's so I feel like I do like it where sometimes there's time to prep, because then you can kind of like approach it strategically. Like we've always had the final before, like, where should we focus our attention first? Like, you need to do this activity because this one drops slightly lower, so you do this first, then you go to this one. So the planning is kind of cool, but I do feel like there may be the middle ground for it.
The planning is my favorite part, man. There's some world firsters who are posting their Google spreadsheet docs publicly and saying, "This is how I'm going to prepare."
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I don't do any of that. I don't do any prep. I don't try to do the world first. So for me, that's why I said what I said. Yeah, it doesn't bother me when it drops. That's exactly why. So for me, it's like just the sooner the better. But I get what you're saying, Arekkz, and I get what you're saying, Destin. So that makes a lot of sense.
I wonder how many people that are expressing discontent with the timing and such would race if that had changed. Or if they're just trying, like, I don't know. People say I'm not really. Yeah. People say I don't have any apathy, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to. What am I supposed to? Or empathy.
Who said that?
That's the word. Because.
Oh, okay, empathy.
Empathy, and like
I was like, who says you don't have any apathy?
It's a video game, so whatever. B, I have empathy for people that are in a weird time zone where it's launching at midnight, but I don't have a lot of empathy for people who have had influencers or people that have done worlds first posting what you need to do exactly. And they're like, nope, you're gaming this system. I just hear tons of excuses. That's what I hear. And it's really hard for me to be empathetic to people who are just like not going to put in the time. I'm like, well, like I don't have anything. I still work a full-time job. I'm not going to be playing Destiny at work to prepare for the raid. I'm going to come home and I'm going to prepare as much as I can, and I'm going to do those things.
I actually think you have it harder than a lot of people.
Why?
Because you do have that full-time job, and you do have a wife, and you do have all that prep that you need to go through. You have real life stuff. There's people out there that just literally just play games non-stop, and they have a bigger advantage than you do. But that doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter.
Honestly, yeah, I mean, for me, I don't think I have it hard because I do have the advantage of working at a gaming company. But I know what you're saying. I work a 9 to 5. I have personal life stuff going on too that I need to consider. And I suppose there are other people, but I don't care. Good luck to them. That's all that I say. I would love it because I know nobody thinks I'm going to win just once. If I could pull off a world's first, I would feel like $1 million. Because nobody thinks I can do it. It would be the story that I love about game developers when they're like, nobody expects that person to win. It'd be like, IGN won a world person. Of course, everybody would say I was just carried, but like
IGN paid for it. No.
There's a fantasy that could happen. Honestly, I would be happy with top 10. I think if we place top 10, I would be freaking stoked. And chat, it's fine if you don't think I could do it, because you not thinking I do it will just make the reward that much sweeter when I do. Sean, remember the show?
The closest we ever got. The closest we ever got was 13th. That was our best, which was King's Fall hard mode. Mm-hmm. And then that was like because we used to race really like we used to take it like super seriously, and then after that one we were like, you know what, we're just gonna go in, we're gonna do our best. But just the race stress. But just to quickly kind of like circle back, the one thing I was sort of thinking is maybe in future, maybe the optimal time for it would be not same day, But I feel like the bigger issue, because basically the reason they've done same day is because up until this point, there's always been a way for someone to carry something over, and they've never been able to stop them from doing it for some weird reason. Like, it's their game; they should be able to control it. But there's always been someone.
You still can do a few things, like ballistic logs are going to be able to carry over and such. So there are a few ways you can sort of do that. But
so I feel like what
they
should do.
Yeah,
well, I feel like what they should do, right, if they really want to make it even, is literally make it so that the update goes live, your inventory's wiped, and it's like, now you got a week. But now all the stuff you've been banking beforehand, now you got to start fresh. Then I feel like that's cool, because then everyone is on an even playing field. Then, then all your pre-expansion prep is just to make sure that you got the max gear score for the previous expansion, and then everyone's like, okay, now we've got bounties to farm. Now we've got missions to do. But then every single person has the exact same amount of things they can do.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you decide to delete a character and then go again, in which case that's on you. But it then means that, then everyone's still on an even playing field, but it gives them a little bit more than 6 hours to prep. So if people do have work or things like that, and they do want to take part, and they can, maybe they've got a few days. Like, if they want to keep it short, do it like 3 days. Maybe do it so that, like, the content drops on a Tuesday typically, and maybe the raid happens on like a weekend or like the following Tuesday. So then you've got, like, if people are working, they've got the weekend to do some prep. But I feel like that's always been the bigger issue. It's not really been, because Destiny raids have always come at pretty decent times. I feel like it's always been more so just about what people can do before the raid to then give themselves like an insane advantage beforehand. I think that's the difference.
I'll say this. I would be totally fine if they said, all right, all of your bounties, everything are just wiped. And they're doing some of that. They're locking the raids, which are your biggest power advantage gains, actually.
True.
Or that's how a lot of people got ready for, was it Last Wish? And, like, they stacked their etheric keys and everything, and they were able to clear it pretty quick. They're not getting rid of everything, so there's still an element to strategy. A lot of it is just, like, have your bounties ready to be popped. Make sure you have ballistic logs. Make sure that you've advanced your alts to 700, and that make sure that you have the reckoning unlocked. Make sure you have a tier 3 synthesizer so you can do tier 3 reckoning. All of that sort of stuff is basically the prep work that you're doing this time around. So I would be totally fine if they did that. They're not. So I'm going to utilize the things that I can to give me an edge in the race, and those things are just preparedness. I see them as, if you're going to run a marathon, it's working your way up to being able to run 26.2 miles or something like that. I only did a half, and I'll never do it again. It's doing the regular training and such. Real quick, I just realized we're at time. Was there anything else that I missed that we wanted to go over?
I mean, there's little things here and there, like Borderlands 3 released a cosplay package, or a bunch of PDFs, so you can cosplay as the new classes, Flak, Mose, Zane, and Amara. And it does add a little bit of backstory to the characters as well, so you can... You can now like break it down as much as you want. But for example, Flak is an AI for sure. That's confirmed. So we know Flak is not human. There you go, guys.
I like his little backpack things as well, like the little things that hang on his bag.
Yeah. The little cool. Yeah, he gets a where are they? I'm gonna have a look here quickly. He gets a little pet bowl that he has around him all the time, and class mods are actually on your character now, so that's pretty cool. Like, you can see them.
Like, there's a visual indicator.
There's a visual indicator, yeah. Like, his class mods are little toys, little squeezy toys that he clips to his backpack, which is really cool. And it's confirmed that he has 3 pets. He has a skag, a spider ant, and a jabber companion. So, and those all seem to grow dependent on your skill trees. So we'll just have to wait and see.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yeah, it was pretty neat to see, like, get a little bit more info about Mose and Flak. I hadn't seen too much about them, so just to be able to read a little bit, like, Flak, an emergent AI driven in an ongoing quest for self-discovery. Flak wanders from world to world, accompanied by beasts, while they feel a connection with the primal wisdom of animals. The social constructs of humans are strange to them. On their endless hunt, Flak loyal skag, spider ant, and jabber companions help them track and claim their quarry. be it human, vault monster, or anything in between. You guys want to do
I love
Moe's?
this trailer voice.
You guys want to do Moe's?
I personally connect to exactly what he said there. I mean, I get along with animals, but humans, man. I don't know. Am I an AI?
If you guys don't want to do it, I'm going to do Goofy Moe's read. Once a
All right,
soldier in the Vladov Army's Ursa Corps, Moe's left the service to pursue her own mercenary interests and hunt for the vaults. When the going gets tough, she can use her Digitrust pack to summon her heavy mech Iron Bear and face down an enemy without flinching, using powerful mounted weapons to mow the opposition down. A veteran of wars from across the 6 galaxies, Moe's and Iron Bear are a force to be reckoned with. Coming this
That sounds like one of
summer.
those. It sounds like one of those toy commercials.
Yeah,
Like,
you-
want to buy this toy? Come to Argos.
Yeah,
you went from like movie to toy.
it's a commercial. I don't know. I wanted to try something
commercial.
different.
That was great.
Love it.
I do like her mech actually. Her mech looks really cool.
Her bear mech. Yeah, it looks like you can customize the arms any way you see fit, and you can add that extra turret on the top if someone wants to jump in with you and do 2-player kind of beasting around. But like I've said before, I've said this on my videos, I feel like Borderlands 2 and was all about the guns. Was all about getting a new gun, trying it out, and then playing 3. It feels exactly the same. Like, you really love your guns, so getting into a mech kind of stops you from using the cool stuff you just found. So
Unless the
suddenly
mech feels really good.
yes, and that's exactly my point. I feel like there's got to be an upgrade that lets you use your guns on both arms or something. Like, yeah. Anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's everything we had this week. I could honestly rant about the raid, Destiny raid, and just how excited I am. I'm stoked. I'm running with a little bit of a different raid team this time around, and we're all like really in it. We're strategizing and we're talking a lot, and we have this analytical, data-driven approach. And I just eat that stuff up, like pre-planning and coordinating, and like that's like my favorite thing about games like this. Anything you guys want?
Google spreadsheets or Excel going?
We do. We absolutely do.
No,
Yeah.
Amazing.
Anything else you guys want to hit on before we go?
So that's it for today.
All right.
yeah, that's it for today. Yeah, I'm really excited for Borderlands 3, and I feel like we're going to get something pretty soon to talk about. I'm thinking another trailer or something along those lines. So definitely do keep your eyes peeled. I hope by next week there's something to talk about on that space. But if not, then we have E3 coming up the following week, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If you guys are watching live, I'm going to go be grinding Destiny 2 immediately after this and streaming a lot of Destiny 2 as I prepare for the raids. If you'd like to join me for that, stick on around. And don't forget, Loot Drops is supported by you guys. So if you want to subscribe or anything like that, that does help me pay for the Libsyn subscription. So that's great. And thank you to those that do regularly. For Arekkz and Dantics, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
See you later.
See you guys.